How you shape your life is in your hands. What would you do if you could gather all of life's challenges into a priceless lesson? There was a time when Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, stumbled along the way and learned what it truly means to live. Today's story is about those life lessons of his, which might change your life as well. The time you have is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Be brave, listen to your heart, and enjoy life the right way. Be foolish, but remain hungry. Because the challenges of life are your opportunities to learn. We must learn from Steve Jobs' life to chase our dreams and become courageous. Because life is an endless journey. Steve Jobs, a legend in the world of technology, has left us with invaluable lessons from his life. He learned how to move forward toward fulfilling dreams through his experiences of stumbling along the way. He said, "Life is limited, so it's essential to forget about others' lives and walk your own path." The 3 stories from his Stanford speech teach us how to be brave and follow our intuition. Jobs' experiences inspire us to embrace any challenge as an opportunity for learning. Let's try to transform our lives by drawing inspiration from his life. Let's change our perspective on life. Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, was an extraordinary leader, and there are thousands of motivational videos on YouTube about his biography. You might have seen many such videos. However, today's video will be a bit different. Imagine if Steve Jobs could share all the lessons from his 50 years of life in just 15 minutes. How amazing would that be? The answer would probably be, yes, that would be fantastic. Today, that's what's going to happen. In 2005, Steve Jobs delivered a speech at Stanford University, where he shared the most important lessons of his life through 3 stories in just 15 minutes. Now, if I were to ask you whether you have heard that Stanford speech by Steve Jobs, most people might say, no, I haven't. One reason for not having heard it could be that the speech was in English. Many great motivational speakers have praised this speech and said that everyone should listen to it at least once in their lives. It wouldn't be right to miss out on one of the most inspiring speeches in the world just because of a language barrier. For a moment, free yourself from all thoughts and the noise around you. You are about to hear a speech that could change your entire life. I feel incredibly honored to be here with you at one of the world's best universities' graduation ceremony. To be honest, I have never graduated from any university, and today is the first time I am participating in a graduation ceremony up close. Today, I will share with you 3 stories from my life. Nothing big, just 3 stories. The first story is about finding my rhythm in life. Within 6 months of enrolling at Reed College, I dropped out. However, I stayed at the college for almost a year before fully leaving. The reason I dropped out actually began at the time of my birth. My mother was an unmarried student at the university, and she wanted to give me up for adoption to a family that had a university degree. A lawyer and his wife agreed to adopt me. But after my birth, my parents wanted a girl child, so in the middle of the night, they called the adopting family and said, "We have had a boy, do you still want to adopt him?" They replied, "Of course." Later, my mother learned that none of the lawyer's family had a university degree. Not even my adoptive father graduated from high school. After learning this, my mother refused to sign the adoption agreement. A few years later, my adoptive parents promised that they would definitely send me to college, and on that assurance, my mother decided to give me up for adoption. That is how my life began. 17 years later, I did go to college, but I mistakenly chose one that was just as expensive as Stanford. My working-class parents were spending their life savings on my education. 6 months later, I realized that this education might not hold any value for my future. Yet, I was pouring all my parents' hard-earned money into it. So, I decided to drop out of college and trust life that everything would be alright. At that time, the decision was very risky, but I now realize it was one of the best decisions of my life. After dropping out, I was free from all the boring required classes, and I started choosing classes that truly interested me. Not everything was very romantic back then. I had no fixed place to stay, so I would sleep on the floor wherever my friends let me stay. I would return used Coke bottles to get bus fare and buy food with that. To enjoy a good meal at least once a week, I would walk 7 miles every Sunday night to the Hare Krishna temple on the other side of town. I really enjoyed that. Because of my curiosity and inspiration, I did many things recklessly, many of which later became valuable in life. Let me give you an example. At that time, the college had some of the best calligraphy in the country. All the posters and banners on campus were created with hand-painted calligraphy. I wasn't a student at the university anymore, so I easily enrolled in the calligraphy course. I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, as well as techniques for adjusting spacing between different fonts to create beautiful typography. It was not a science but a form of art that captivated me. Even after so many years, I never thought this calligraphy would one day come in handy. But 10 years later, when I designed the first Macintosh computer, that knowledge came into play completely. We used that beautiful typography on the Mac. It was the first computer to feature such intriguing typography. If I hadn't enrolled in that calligraphy course, perhaps the Mac wouldn't have had such a variety of typefaces and proportional fonts. And since Windows followed much of what the Mac did, it's fair to say that such fonts may not have existed on personal computers at all. If I hadn't dropped out of university, I might never have enrolled in that calligraphy course. And then the use of such beautiful fonts on personal computers might never have come to be. However, at the time I was in university, it was impossible to see the future connection of these seemingly isolated events. But looking back 10 years later, everything becomes clear. We can't connect the dots looking forward. We can only connect them looking backward. So we have to trust that these dots will somehow connect in the future. You have to trust something, your gut, destiny, life, or karma, anything. If you trust that the dots will connect down the road, you can then move forward with your life. My second story is about love and loss. I was lucky to find my passion early in life. At 20 years old, Woz and I started Apple in my family's garage. We worked hard, and just 10 years later, the garage company had grown to 4,000 employees and a $2 billion valuation. When I turned 30, we launched our best computer, the Macintosh. And right then, I got fired. Yes, it can happen. As Apple was growing, we hired a talented person, thinking he would take the company to the next level. The first year went well, but over time, I started to disagree with him on some future vision. Our management team sided with him. As a result, at the age of 30, I was forced to leave the company I had created. All my dreams from my youth were shattered in an instant. I was completely devastated. For the next few months, I didn't know what to do. I felt like I had let down the previous generation of entrepreneurs and their confidence. I had failed to live up to the responsibility that had been entrusted to me. I sincerely apologized to David Packard and the board. My story of failure spread everywhere. I even thought about running away from the valley. But slowly, I realized that despite everything, I still loved what I had done. The events at Apple hadn't changed that truth at all. Even though I was rejected, my love for the work had never diminished. So I decided to start over. At that time, I didn't understand it, but later discovered that getting fired from Apple was one of the best things that could have happened to me. Freed from the burden of success, I was able to start anew. It was an unambiguous new beginning. It led me to one of the most creative periods of my life. In the next 5 years, I founded a company called Next, started another company called Pixar, and fell in love with an amazing woman who later became my wife. From Pixar, we created the world's first animated feature film, Toy Story. Pixar is now the most successful animation studio in the world. Then some incredible things happened. Apple acquired Next, bringing me back to the company. The technology we developed at Next is now a fundamental part of Apple's business success. Meanwhile, Lauren and I built a happy family together. I'm sure none of this would have happened if I hadn't been fired from Apple. It was a bitter experience for me, but I think it was necessary for the patient. Sometimes life hits you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm sure I was able to move on because I did what I loved. You must find what you love to do, just as you would find your soulmate. The only way to be truly happy is to do what you love. A significant part of your life will be your work, and you can only do great work when you love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. Don't settle. Once you find it, your heart will know. It's like any great relationship, it gets better and better as time goes on. So keep looking for what you love, don't settle. My last story is about death. At 17, I read a quote that went, "If you live each day as if it were your last, someday you'll most certainly be right." This statement had a profound impact on me. For the past 33 years, I have stood in front of the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I do what I'm about to do today? If I find myself unable to answer that question for a few days, I understand that I need to make changes in my plans. The thought that I might die soon has helped me make significant decisions in life. Because everything, hope, expectations, pride, the fear of failure or embarrassment, fades in the face of death. Only what truly matters remains. I know that the best way to dispel the fear of losing something is to remember that one day you will die. You're actually losing everything, so there's no reason not to do what your heart desires. About a year ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. One morning at 7:30, I had a scan that clearly showed a tumor in my pancreas. I didn't yet understand how serious pancreatic issues could be. The doctors informed me that it was a type of cancer that couldn't be treated, and I would live at most 3 to 6 months. They told me to go home and get my affairs in order. In plain terms, the doctors instructed me to prepare for death. This meant I had to say everything I wanted to tell my children in the next 10 years within a few months. I had to prepare everything so that the situation would be as painless as possible for my family, and say goodbye to everyone. That day was essentially a preparation day for me at the office. In the evening, I had a biopsy where the doctors lowered an endoscope through my throat to collect some cells from the tumor in my pancreas. I passed out, so I couldn't see anything. But later my wife told me that when the doctors began to examine those cells, they broke down in tears. Because the cancer that had been detected was actually operable. After that, I had surgery, and now I'm doing well. This was my closest encounter with death. I hope to never come this close to death again. Previously, I only viewed death from a philosophical perspective, but after that horrifying experience, I can confidently say that no one truly wants to die. Even those who wish to go to heaven don't want to die to get there. Yet, death is the ultimate destination for all of us. No one can escape death, and it should be so. Because death is perhaps life's greatest invention. It is the agent of change in life. Death washes away the old to make room for the new. And at this moment, you are that new. But with time, you too will gradually wash away. That day is not far off. I'm sorry to say this so harshly, but it's the absolute truth. Your time is limited, So don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by the dogma of others' beliefs. If other people's opinions matter to you, don't suppress your own mind's voice. The most important thing is to be brave enough to live according to your heart's desires. Only your heart knows what you truly want. Everything else is just noise of the moment. When I was young, a magazine was published called Whole Earth Catalog. It was sacred to our generation. It was published by a gentleman named Stuart Brand, who lived near Menlo Park. Due to his poetic flair, the magazine came to life. This was in the late 1960s. At that time, computers and desktop publishing had not been introduced. So the magazine was made through typewriters, scissors, paste, and wet cameras. The magazine was bound in paper and was rich in excellent ideas. It was published 35 years before Google. Many issues of the magazine were published with the collaboration of Stuart and his team under the title Dawwold's Catalog. The publication ended with a final issue, which was around the mid-1970s. I was like you then. The last issue of the magazine had a picture of a country road at dawn. Those of you who love adventure might take a stroll down such a road. Below the picture was written, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." This was their last message at the time of farewell. I have prayed for this throughout my life. And today, at the start of your new life after graduation, I pray the same for you. Stay hungry, stay foolish. If you can take away just one lesson from today's story, it would be this. Never be afraid, be brave, and listen to your heart. Because the true beauty of life lies here. This story teaches us to rethink our lives. We should embrace challenges as tools for learning and courageously move toward our dreams. Start seeing life anew today, because every new day is a new opportunity. Thank you all very much.